Hi YouTube. So today I decided that we are gonna continue the little series that I started in the beginning of this year called James. And if you're wondering why I have sunglasses on, these are my new sunglasses that are made to my eyesight so I can use them 24/7 because of my migraines and stuff like that. So hopefully that doesn't bother you, but it keeps me functional, so it's better for me to have these than not to have them, especially when it's pretty sunny outside and sun always gets to me. But so Jacob chapter 2 is actually where we left, and in James in Finnish it's Jacob, and the name is Jacob, so I don't understand why you English people call him James, but anyway. So if I call him James or Jacob, it's the same thing. I'm just from Finland and I'm used to the name of Jacob. But the main three things in the chapter 2 is appearance, the royal order, the royal law, and faith and works. Chapter 2 of James is probably the most controversial chapter in the Bible. People tend to think that James is under law and thinks that doing the works of the law you get to heaven, but that's not the case. And I urge you to read the whole James, not just some verses on it, but the whole James. But let's begin from the appearance. Every one of us should look into ourselves and realize that we are under the law, that we tend to judge people by their appearance. Whether or not that's good or not, it's not that important, because you judge anyone when you first see them by how they look. And it's natural for us, and that's why we always say that we need to make a good first impression, because you can always make only one first impression. But even though it's natural for us, James reminds us that we should not be more kind or serving the rich and the beautiful people, or beautiful in dresses and stuff like that, but James says that God looks inside of man, not outward of man, and that's what we should do. We should judge man by what he does, what he thinks, not by the way he looks. And the world judges you by the way you look, but we should actually judge and make our opinion of you by the way you behave and act. James brings up a very good point, saying that all the apostles were poor, working class men. They were not, university graduate. They did not go to schools, many of them. Of course, Paul was a full Pharisee, so he did go to school. Matthew was a toll collector, so he did probably have some kind of education in languages. But in a general sense, they were all poor, at least when they started to follow Christ. Outwards appearance is always a shell of outwards. It's not who you are. What you are is inside of you, not outside of you. For us, the only main thing is what you are inside, not what you are on the outside. The royal law, royal order, how you want to pronounce it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. How many times do we hear that sentence in the Bible, especially in the New Testament, in different words, different contexts, but the same principle? It's a sentence that does make us well, it pierces us. It doesn't leave anything to be desired. But what does that law keep inside? Well, if we believe what James and Jesus says, the whole law and nothing but the law. Love your God, love your Lord your God, and keep no other gods, and love your neighbors as yourself. That's what Jesus says is the whole law. There is the law. And if you look at the Ten Commandments, that's pretty much what it is. If you love your neighbor, you don't lust for their wives or their cattle or their cars nowadays or their computers, their whatevers. If you love them, those things doesn't matter to you. James reminds us that if we do these, everything is fine. But if we look a human by their outward appearance, and if we look at the humans as something else, we break the law and the whole law and nothing but the law. And I mean the whole law. And the whole law does condemn you as a guilty person. That's what the law does. The law of God is designed to show you that you are a sinner, no matter how good you are. There is no protection under law. There's only protection under Christ and His salvation work and His cross and His resurrection. And Christ orders us to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. It doesn't mean that you need to love your neighbor more than yourself. It means love them as yourself. If we love ourselves, we should love our neighbors. And I don't mean that if you have low self-esteem that you can't love your neighbor. No, that doesn't mean that. It means that you take care of yourself, hopefully. You put yourself through everything in a day. You eat, you drink water, coffee, milk, you sleep, you rest. That's what you should give your neighbor too. If they need something, give it to them. Either you love or you go under the law. That's what James is going after. Now, my favorite subject is faith and works, and I've done already a video about this, so you can go watch that if you want. This is the most brutal part of James. It's the most black and white part of James. There is no gray in James. Either you believe and you do, or you are not in faith. James clearly teaches us that faith without works is false faith, and works without faith are futile. Neither one of those things alone are perfect, but both together are perfect. Works without faith are just, it pumps us up with self-righteousness. You get a good feeling about giving to charity or giving to homeless or whatever. It has nothing to do with faith. It doesn't save you, no matter what you do. And faith without works is an unknown concept for James. James can't understand that. Because if we are in faith, we should do the things Jesus commands us to do. Simple mathematics. Faith follows works. Works follows faith. Sorry. That way. If you are in faith, you should help one another. You should help those who are in need. The man who is in faith can't hide his faith forever and say that, well, I believe in my own way, in my own home, I don't need anyone to know that. That's not how it goes. faith and works together. You can't do the works of faith if you stay at home saying that my faith is my own thing. A believer puts God first and himself second or third. Not himself first and God second. By faith we are saved and we have been given a gift. And that should birth some kind of will to do things for the name of God and for the glorification of God and for the goodness of God. It should give us the mind that whatever we do for God. The reason Abraham was called righteousness was faith. And that faith gave birth to a deed, to a work. He was ready to give up his own son because God asked him or ordered him to do so. A thing none of us would be able to do today. Or if you are, I'm seriously doubting your love for your child. Faith and works are the most simplest thing in James' mind. It means that you put God first and yourself second. There's no way around it. Faith should give birth to works. Faith without works is dead because you put yourself before God. Or your family before God. Or your hobbies before God. But anything before God, your faith is dead. And a person like that says, I don't need to do that. God can't always demand me to do anything. Haven't I done enough? Have you ever said those words? Especially when it comes to doing something in your church. The fact is, God has never asked you enough. You have never done enough. And yes, you always need to do. We cannot pay back our salvation, and that's not what James or anyone else even means. It means by grace we are saved, so that should give us the understanding and the feeling and the wantonness to live our lives for the one who saved us. We live for the will of God and by the will of God every day, around the clock. James ends the chapter 1 and 2 actually pretty cleverly about the service of God, appearance, law of love, faith and works. He puts it all to rest. These chapters 1 and 2 are made so James wrote them so that we understand what we are, so that we would understand what we should do when we are in faith. They are not separate chapters, and it may even be because we have put them in separate chapters that we have, we have difficulties to understand it. They are so intertwined together, and they are meant to be read together, and that's the way you can actually appreciate and understand the whole meaning of the first two chapters and the whole James. Faith and works together, never separate, is the way James teaches us. And it's the way Jesus teaches us. It's the way how God in the Bible has always shown us. You need to believe in Him and you need to do what He says. Works alone won't save you. And faith without works is dead. Simple mathematics. But anyways, that was my short teaching about James chapter 2. I gave this in CBS in January 30th, I think. So it's taken so long, but I've been busy. And now that I have a new camera, new office, new glasses, I can actually start doing these things. But anyways, have a nice day and be blessed.